of the most thrilling subcompact cars in the world is the Honda Civic Type R. They're about as polarizing a vehicle as there is on the road today, which is just what Honda wanted. It turns heads dramatically so, and it turns heads with the quote-unquote right crowd. Some people look at it and say it's a little bit over the top. Some people look at it and say, man, I'd do anything to have that car. I'm in that second group. I think it's one of the most amazing cars I've ever seen at any price. I'm going to pop the hood and we're going to take a look about what makes the Type R so exciting and so different than everything else out on the marketplace. Now, a small 4-cylinder engine, especially from Honda, isn't going to have a lot of horsepower, or so you might think. The Type R actually has 305 horsepower. And so whenever you have a car that's so hopped up like that, you know for sure it doesn't have any torque. That's just how it is in a small turbocharged engine. Not the case in the Type R, which has 296 foot-pounds of torque. So an amazingly powerful car connected to an amazing racetrack inspired chassis. And I don't mean racetrack inspired like they make fancy cars and this is just from that same brand and it's got a couple of different shocks. This is an absolute track car that just happens to be built by Honda. If anything, it's the evolution of the S2000, one of the great small cars in the history of the car business, but done with a Civic platform. That kind of power is unique in all of the world. Other cars have big horsepower numbers, but they're nowhere near the reliability, especially over the long haul, as Honda. And so you can imagine the resale value on this is going to be as good as anything there is in the whole wide world. Let's take a look inside. As we come around, one thing that we'll notice is that the front brakes are actually Brembo brakes. It's not often that you see Honda use other manufacturers' brakes, but Brembo is just about as good as it gets in the world. And then they're drilled front discs as well. Taking a look inside, you start getting an idea of what this car is all about. This isn't the interior from a Honda. This is the interior from a Ferrari. And I don't mean that facetiously. This is a purpose-built track car. Now, it's also a small car. So I'm 6 foot, 180 pounds. Let's make sure I fit. Well, not only do I fit great. Now, today's high-performance car, they measure handling in the form of G-forces. So a car that can achieve about 0.9 G-forces is a really good handling car. That's kind of the Mason-Dixon line that separates pedestrian cars that maybe have sticky tires and nice wheels and that sort of thing from bona fide track cars. 0.9 is a big number. This car handles 1.02 G-forces, which is utterly electrifying. This is the kind of car, whatever it is that you want to do, it's going to do it. What's so crazy about that is this is a front-wheel drive car. Front-wheel drive cars are the worst for high performance. If anything, you want a rear-wheel drive car. The old S2000 was rear-wheel drive, that's why it handled so good. But it didn't handle this good. It didn't pull 1.02 Gs, and it didn't do it with front-wheel drive. The beauty of the front-wheel drive is the packaging allows for more comfort for the passengers inside, and I actually have a lot of comfort. The limit is the handling, but I'm telling you right now, handling is not a problem on the Type R. Let's take a look in back. Well, I'm plenty comfortable in the front. Come to find out, I'm plenty comfortable in the back. Now, this car is utterly surrounded in airbags. It's a very safe vehicle. Honda builds an incredibly solid car, and their crash test results are at the top of the spectrum in everything that they make. Safety is a big deal in a car like this. Now, this car stops from 70 miles an hour to 0 miles an hour in 142 feet. That is absolutely astonishing. To give you a point of reference, the $200,000 Acura NSX stops in the same distance. So plenty of space all around. And then it's a hatchback, so enormous space in the back. And then it has 60/40 folding rear seats, which makes it almost practical. And again, this is one of the many things that separates the Civic Type R from everything else. It's just a great car. It's a practical car. It's a great performance car. It's simply different than anything else you've ever experienced. Taking a look down below, one of the things that folks complain about with the Civic Type R is the exhaust. Not that the exhaust isn't great, it is great. The problem is it's too great. It's actually not all that loud. Again, everything seems to be conspiring against logic. A small car with this kind of power must be obnoxiously loud. No, not at all actually. Let's take a look back inside. Now, you're not going to be driving down the road with the doors open, the hood open, and everything else. But if you were, this is what you'd be hearing. It's just not that loud. In fact, even with everything open, you can barely hear it at all over the air conditioning. It's just a really fascinating car. You don't see them on the road all that often. You know that a lot of people are going to sock these away because they're for absolute certain collector's cars of the highest magnitude. They bring a significant premium over MSRP and they're worth every last dime. If you can find one in any way, shape, or form, with miles, without miles, and it's in any way realistically priced, and this kind of car is your thing, do yourself the biggest favor in the world and pull the trigger. You could have nothing but $500,000 Ferraris in a line and drive this right down the middle, and I'm telling you right now, heads are gonna turn. It's just a thrilling, real, honest, high-performance car. The fact that it doesn't cost tons of money means absolutely nothing. The fact that it's built on a Honda Civic platform means absolutely nothing. One of the most exciting cars in the history of Honda, and let me tell you, Honda has a pretty great history. It's on your shortest list if you want something completely different from what anybody else has. And if you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to me. My name is Joe Tunney. You can reach me at joeloveshawaii@gmail.com.